Tonight we're still halfway in this series. Probably we're starting a new sutta. I think we are presenting 4 suttas in all to talk about the different definitions of nimittas based on different contexts. So today we are covering the 3rd sutta, the Āhāra Sutta, which we've already covered before. I'm not sure whether it's this year or last year during the Ramadan season. Yeah, Āhāra Sutta. So we covered this before. Okay, next. Alright, so I'll just briefly read through, then hopefully you'll get to see this sign or nimitta. Yeah? So down here, the nimittas or the theme is based on the hindrance, or rather the instigator for the hindrance. Okay. I'll just read through. Monks, I will teach you the feeding and starving of the 5 hindrances and of the 7 factors of awakening. Listen and pay close attention. I will speak. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen sensual desire? So that's the first of the 5 hindrances. Or for the growth and increase of sensual desire once it has arisen. There is the theme of beauty. So this is the nimitta of beauty. Anything that look beautiful, look pretty, look nice, sort of trigger the pleasant feeling, to foster inappropriate attention to it. So once a person doesn't have right reflection, we call this inappropriate attention. So the mind will start to think of all sorts of things related to getting this beauty. This is the food for the arising of unarisen sensual desire, or for the growth and increase of sensual desire once it has arisen. So in this sutta particular context, this nimitta is not painted in a very positive manner, rather it's quite unwholesome or negative. Okay, next. And the second hindrance, and what is the food for the arising of unarisen ill will, or for the growth and increase of ill will once it has arisen? There is the theme of irritation. So any unpleasant feeling, any image or any scene, any story that you find it causing unpleasant feeling to arise, then that's the nimitta. To foster inappropriate attention to it. This is the food for the arising of unarisen ill will, or for the growth and increase of ill will once it has arisen. So during our meditation routine, even if we are doing like very official meditation object, if we were to, let's say, visualize the hairs, I always give the example. If you find the hair looks beautiful, so that's the theme of beauty. The hair or the fashion very nice, or you comb it very well, or very shiny, or whatever it is, then without appropriate attention, the mind will tend to react with greed. So there will be more sensual desire. If let's say you find the hair, you visualize the hair, so ugly, so disgusting one, the fashion so ugly, I don't like. Then we call this inappropriate attention. Then one will develop this aversion. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen sloth and drowsiness, or for the growth and increase of sloth and drowsiness once it has arisen? Okay, so for those who frequently fall asleep in meditation, so this is the reason. There are boredom, weariness, yawning, drowsiness after a meal, sluggishness of awareness. To foster inappropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unarisen sloth and drowsiness, or for the growth and increase of sloth and drowsiness once it has arisen. So regarding food, so that's biological, because the blood goes to the digestive system, so maybe not enough blood go to the brain, so that's biological. But in terms of mental, there will be more on like boredom. Let's say the meditation you do, you're not putting in right effort, you do not repeat, you just want to stay there, stay with the stillness, it gets boring. And once it gets boredom, then the mind will chase after other things, chase after the dream, chase after the stray thoughts. Then you soon fall asleep. So that's the one of the reasons. So in our routine, we keep on repeating, generate right effort all the time. Once you finish the sentence, the reflection, then you keep repeating. Do not leave the mind idle for more than 2 seconds. So that's my 2-second rule. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen restlessness and anxiety, or for the growth and increase of restlessness and anxiety once it has arisen? So for those opposite of drowsiness, the mind is over hyperactive, worry a lot of problem, the mind run here, run there, a lot of planning, a lot of worrying, lots of restlessness. So the cause, they mentioned here, there is non-stealing of awareness to foster inappropriate attention to that. So basically, when they mention inappropriate attention, is basically similar to the first two hindrances. Once we place inappropriate attention, the mind will generate lots of stories, and that leads to restlessness. This is the food for the arising of unarisen restlessness and anxiety, or for the growth and increase of restlessness and anxiety once it has arisen. So, for example, when we do the impurities of the body again, we normally keep wishing the parts of the body well and happy until the mind calms down. If the mind is not calm or emotionally neutral, then you start to think that, this will go through birth, aging, sickness, and death when we sort of do the insight portion. And if the mind is not calm, then the mind will end up in this state of restlessness and anxiety. Lots of worry. You start to worry, the hair fall off, maybe go and dye the hair or go seek for hair treatment. So you start to worry. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen uncertainty? So this is the fifth hindrance, or for the growth and increase of uncertainty once it has arisen. There's a phenomena that act as a foothold for uncertainty. To foster inappropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unarisen uncertainty, or for the growth and increase of uncertainty once it has arisen. So most of the hindrance is caused by this thing called inappropriate attention, so including this one. So once the mind, when you pay attention to something and then you let it autopilot, once you let it autopilot, you will naturally follow the stream of thoughts that lead to inappropriate attention. Generate all kinds of story, all kinds of worry, all kinds of fantasy regarding whatever you're paying attention earlier. So that is, we call this inappropriate attention. So the whole idea is not to let the mind autopilot, and do not let it create these habitual bad habits. So we reprogram the mind, keep on generating wholesome thoughts to overcome this inappropriate attention. Okay, next slide. So now it talks about the feeding, the factors for awakening. So earlier on it's all about the hindrance and suffering. So now we talk about the solution, how to overcome suffering. Now, what is the food for the arising of unarisen mindfulness as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of mindfulness as a factor for awakening once it has arisen? And there are mental qualities that act as foothold for mindfulness as a factor for awakening, well-purified virtue and views made straight to foster appropriate attention to them. And this is the food for the arising of unarisen mindfulness as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of mindfulness as a factor for awakening once it has arisen. And so the foundation, we call this well-purified virtue and views made straight. So you need right view, and you also need all the right speech, action, and right livelihood. So all these are part of the virtue. So you need all these in order to have good mindfulness. So sometimes a lot of people, let's say they want to attend mindfulness courses. They do not have the holistic package of, let's say, a religious training to be a wholesome person or whatever. They just straight away just attend a mindfulness course and expect to have peace of mind. No way, impossible. A person can maybe train themselves to be calm, but that calmness is not based on virtue or right view. So let's say a person planning a burglary, if they so-called apply straight away so-called mindfulness, secular kind of mindfulness, they're very calm, very objective, they plan very well, they try to make their emotion as neutral as possible, not too emotional. They can execute the plan very well, but it's all based on harmfulness. So it's not the religious or the spiritual kind of mindfulness. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unreasoned analysis of qualities as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of analysis of qualities once it has arisen? There are mental qualities that are skillful and unskillful, blameworthy and blameless, gross and refined, siding with darkness and with light. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unreasoned analysis of qualities as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of analysis of qualities once it has arisen. So mindfulness, when you try to be aware, you also need to identify what is skillful and unskillful, and you need certain right view. What is defined as skillful, what is defined as unskillful. So probably in the previous sharing we've done it before. So some people may not know certain hindrance is unskillful, so they daydream, very peaceful, daydream, they sit there, daydream and do nothing. To them, very good, very peaceful, very calm. But they do not know it's unskillful. So you need to have certain right view also to identify what is skillful versus what is unskillful. So this factor for analysis of qualities is to identify and to compare. Is a bit like an experiment. So you yourself must know the causation, what kind of thoughts lead to what kind of results. If you leave the mind in this certain so-called unskillful state, what kind of suffering will arise, what kind of emotion will appear. And if you apply certain, let's say, right thought, what kind of emotion appear, what kind of mental state appear. So this is part of investigation. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unreasoned persistence as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of persistence once it has arisen? So this one talks about the effort, persistence, right effort. There is the potential for effort, the potential for exertion, the potential for striving. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unreasoned persistence as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of persistence once it has arisen. So every time we meditate, once there's a gap, then you need to think, can you fill in that gap? If you blank out, can you fill in that gap? Can you generate right thoughts to fill up that space or that gap? So this is the potential for effort. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unreasoned rapture as a factor for awakening? So rapture is the emotion of joy, or for the growth and increase of rapture once it has arisen. There are mental qualities that act as foothold for rapture as a factor for awakening, to foster appropriate attention to them. This is the food for arising of unarisen rapture as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of rapture once it has arisen. So this one, usually I'll ask you to go through the process of detachment. Once you keep on thinking of impermanence, you must investigate. That means the previous factor, you must investigate what state of mind, when you think of impermanence, will lead to this rapture. So normally we say at least minimum you need the neutral emotion, the neutral baseline emotion, not too meritorious. It's just a neutral state, but that would be the minimum criteria. But if you have something more meritorious, let's say maybe the jhanas or something else, something higher, more concentration, then that would also act as a foothold for rapture. One of the conditions. It's just like starting a fire. You need several conditions. You need the fuel, you need the oxygen, you need the heat. So the calm mind probably acts as a fuel. Then you need to investigate impermanence. So that's like the heat, And once you have that, this criteria, then this rapture will arise. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen calm as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of calm once it has arisen? There is physical calm and there is mental calm. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unarisen calm as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of calm once it has arisen. So I normally mention the 7 factors of awakening as a chain reaction. So once the rapture appears, if you continue to be mindful of impermanence, it will lead to this calm, this tranquility, passaddhi. But if a person gets carried away by the joy or the previous few factors, you get carried away, then you kind of celebrate too early without continuing, then this we call this inappropriate attention. The mind starts to lapse, and then you go back to square one. So it's important to always be mindful of this impermanence. So if you look at the background, again, the simile of the shore. In Buddhism, we always talk about rowing the raft across to the other shore. So the right effort would be to keep rowing the paddle of the raft. So it's like we keep on thinking of right thoughts all the time, right effort, right thoughts. That's rowing the raft. And once we stop, then the currents and the waves and the currents will just push us back. So that's the whole idea. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen concentration as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of concentration once it has arisen? Okay, so this one is still part of the 7 factors of awakening. So this is nothing to do with the jhanic concentration. It's got to do with the development after tranquility. Okay, there are themes for tranquility, themes for non-distraction. These are the 4 establishments of mindfulness. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unarisen concentration as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of concentration once it has arisen. So if a person continues to be mindful of impermanence, that's part of the 4 foundation of mindfulness, because the 4 foundation of mindfulness mentioned regardless of body, feelings, mind, or Dhamma, you need to be mindful of the arising and passing. Okay, next. And what is the food for the arising of unarisen equanimity? So this is the last factor for awakening, as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of equanimity once it has arisen. They are mental qualities that act as foothold for equanimity, as a factor for awakening. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unreasoned equanimity, as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of equanimity as a factor for awakening once it has arisen. So this is the last of the chain. So it is developed after one has this vipassana samadhi, or this insight concentration, which is the previous slide. Once you have the concentration, always mindful of impermanence, regardless of which factor. So if a person has this factor of equanimity, you also need to be mindful of impermanence. So these 7 factors is just a sign to show that you're on the right track. You're on the middle path, and it needs to be fully developed. It needs to be fully developed. So to fully develop it, you need to always be mindful of impermanence all the time. Okay, next. Okay, so now we talk about starving the hindrance. So we talk about replacing the nimitta. Now, what is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned sensual desire, or for the growth and increase of sensual desire once it has arisen? There is a theme of unattractiveness. To foster appropriate attention to it, this is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned sensual desire, or for the growth and increase of sensual desire once it has arisen. So the very core solution for sensual desire or lust would be to think of this unattractiveness, repulsiveness of the body. Things like human biology and anatomy, or the stages of bodily decomposition. So they would consider the theme of unattractiveness. So that's similar to last week's session. We talked about replacing one theme with the other. So it's mentioned here. Okay, next. And what is the lack of food for the arising of unreasoned ill will, or for the growth and increase of ill will once it has arisen? So to counter-check the previous one, let's say some people overdo these impurities of the body meditation, and they start to have aversion to the body. Then you need this loving kindness to balance out. There's awareness release through goodwill, compassion, empathetic joy or equanimity. To foster appropriate attention to that, this is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned ill will, or for the growth and increase of ill will once it has arisen. So the key word here, it mentions awareness release. So a person needs to enter certain concentrated state with insight to have this awareness release. So not just simply wish the part of the body well, or wish another person well. Not good enough. You need to practice these boundless sublime states until it has awareness release. So awareness release would be quite a high attainment. Okay, next. And what is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned sloth and drowsiness, or for the growth and increase of sloth and drowsiness once it has arisen? There is the potential for effort, the potential for exertion, the potential for striving. That to foster appropriate attention to them, this is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned sloth and drowsiness, or for the growth and increase of sloth and drowsiness once it has arisen. So this is the solution. Like we mentioned earlier, do not leave the mind idle. Once you leave the mind idle, you go into this mental sluggishness or drowsiness. So you need to, every moment, generate right thought, contemplation. We call this right effort. Okay, next. And what is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned restlessness, and anxiety, or for the growth and increase of restlessness and anxiety once it has arisen. There is stealing of awareness. To foster appropriate attention to that, this is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned restlessness and anxiety, or for the growth and increase of restlessness and anxiety once it has arisen. Yeah, so appropriate attention would be all the right reflection to reduce craving and to eventually lead the mind to stillness. So that is the appropriate attention part. Okay, next slide. And what is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned uncertainty, or for the growth and increase of uncertainty once it has arisen? There are mental qualities that are skillful and unskillful, blameworthy and blameless, gross and refined, siding with darkness and with light. To foster appropriate attention to them, this is lack of food for the arising of unreasoned uncertainty, or for the growth and increase of uncertainty once it has arisen. Yeah, so this is part of right view. So once a person has right view to differentiate what is skillful or unskillful, then their doubts will be cast away. Some people they do not know how to differentiate what is skillful or unskillful states. So that's why, let's say, any teaching or any instruction, they don't know whether correct or not. So once you're able to put into practice and see your mind states of self, you know, hey, if I practice this, my mind maybe get more greedy, more angry. Then you know that step is not meant for you, or not correct for you, or may not be correct. Sometimes it's our interpretation of the step not correct, or sometimes the step itself is totally not correct. So you need to be able to investigate. But if, let's say, you put into practice, your greed and anger reduce, then you call this skillful states. So a lot of doubt can be overcome once the person has right view. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I think we end the discussion here, or the sharing here for now. We leave this for next week. And then we open the ground for Q&A, questions and answers. Anything you all want to ask? Okay, so we find a comfortable sitting posture. And make sure our back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the impurities of the body meditation. So we're going to do a bit of visualization of the body parts, starting with the hairs, from head to toe, all the hairs. So usually in a neutral setting, if there's like no lustful condition appear, in neutral setting, if you just think of the body parts, then again it might be a potential nimitta, potential theme for two extremes, either a sign for beauty or a sign for irritation, whether you like the hair or you don't like the hair. So what we're going to do is we're going to wish the hairs well and happy. And that's part of right thought. And whenever we finish the sentence, then we continue to move on to a new patch of hair and wish them well and happy. So new patch of hair, well and happy, new patch of hair, well and happy. So again, the ideal is not to leave the mind do nothing for 2 seconds or more than 2 seconds. You start to have this inappropriate attention. And if your appropriate attention is more than your inappropriate attention, you keep on wishing the hairs well and happy, then the mind should be able to calm down. Yeah? So you're able to have wakefulness and calm the mind down. So it's a skillful way of calming the mind. There's also unskillful way of calming the mind. So that falling asleep, you also can calm the mind, but maybe no wakefulness. And your personal challenge is to see how far can the mind settle further. Is there potential to make the mind calm down even more and more? Okay, and you find that the mind is quite settled down to like its maximum limit, cannot settle any further, or the rate of settling is negligible, then we call this your neutral baseline state. So no concentrative states here, no samadhi, it's just a neutral state. And that would be the minimum criteria for insight. So we can switch to the insight portion. We're going to think that all these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and death. And as we keep looping this image, we also need to mentally recite birth, aging, sickness, death, or rising and passing. Okay, so we covered like the 7 factors of awakening. So you must know what kind of condition lead to a rising of rapture or joy. And to proceed further to the calmness or the samadhi or equanimity, it's all about repeating this appropriate attention. That means think of impermanence, rising and passing, or you keep on repeating birth, aging, sickness, death. Then we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through birth and death? And the next part of the body, we can think of the nails, fingernails and toenails, and we wish them well and happy. So this is back to the samatha phase. And all these nails go through birth, aging, sickness, death. So this is the inside portion. We think of the nails growing and falling, many cycles. And as we keep looping this image, we also mentally recite birth, aging, sickness, death, or rising and passing. Then we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through birth and death? And the next part of the body, we can think of the teeth, or the teeth inside the mouth, and we wish them well and happy. And all these teeth are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death. And as I keep looping this image, we also mentally recite birth, aging, sickness, death, or rising and passing. Okay, then we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth, aging, sickness, death? And the next part of the body, we can think of the skin that surrounds the whole body, and we wish them well and happy. And all the skin are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death. And as I keep looping this image, we also mentally recite birth, aging, sickness, death, or rising and passing. And we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through birth and death? Okay, and the next phase of the meditation, we are no longer needed to visualize, we just need to feel the bodily sensations. So we call this mindfulness of the four element sensations. So these are the earth, fire, wind and water elements. So the earth element represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire element represents any hot and cold sensations. Wind element represents any kind of fast, slow movements. And the water element represents any moist or dry sensations. So even though we are not visualizing, we are using a different sense door contact. Same situation or same problem, once there's inappropriate attention, we're just aware of this sensation appearing and we do not apply the right thought. If the sensation appears to be pleasant or beautiful, then one will react with greed. And again, if there is sensations appear irritating, then one may react with aversion. So we need to keep on repeating the right thought, keep wishing the sensations well and happy. Okay, so the same thing, the mind should be able to calm down to this neutral baseline state, and regardless of what you experience, no matter how calm it is, continue to wish the element well and happy. Do not leave the mind idle, let it have boredom, and you stray off. Okay, and now we're going to remember this state of mind or remember this emotion. So this part of the analysis is to be able to differentiate the different mind states. Okay, so now we are going to the samatha route. We're going to cultivate boundless loving kindness. So we're going to wish, may all beings in all directions, may they be well and happy. Above, below, and all across, may all beings be well and happy. And in that enlarged area of awareness, we're going to perceive all beings as the four element sensations. So this is also part of appropriate attention. So we treat all beings as the four elements. Whole universe made of four elements. So whatever sensation appear, we're going to wish, may all beings be well and happy. Because once we start to imagine how these certain people look like, how these species, how they look like, some look scary, some look very cute, then all the inappropriate attention will come in. So we temporarily avoid that, stick to the four elements. Whatever element appears, that's the representation for all beings. lowest common denominator. And then we keep wishing, may all beings be well and happy. So no imagination. Okay, and if the conditions are right, you keep on wishing, may all beings be well and happy, with the right thought, right effort, and everything, then you trigger this right concentration. So if there's any increment in joy and happiness compared to the neutral emotion from earlier, and this will be the indicator. And regardless of what you experience, keep on wishing, may all beings be well and happy. And then we can add some wisdom or insight. We're going to reflect how to cultivate a more detached kind of loving kindness. So whatever sensation appear, we are going to mentally recite, rising and passing. Okay, and if the joy of detachment start to disappear, so this one, because you think of impermanence, so you trigger the 7 factors of awakening if the conditions are right. And if, let's say, the joy of detachment start to disappear, then one may experience this strong neutral emotion, so we call that equanimity. Huh? And regardless of what you experience, keep on reciting rising and passing. Okay, and then we can switch to the second sublime state, which is compassion. So that's also the theme, to overcome this aversion. So we're going to wish, may all beings be free from suffering. So using the non-discrimination method, we don't imagine any story, we just stick to the 4 elements. Any sensation appear, they are subject to clinging by all sentient beings. So whenever any sensation appear, we need to keep on wishing, may all beings be free from suffering. Okay, and if the conditions are right, we keep on wishing may all beings be free from suffering, and this compassion may lead one to the second level of concentration, indicated also by some joy and happiness. And regardless of what you experience, keep on wishing may all beings be free from suffering. Okay, then we can switch to the insight portion, and we're going to reflect how to overcome suffering, which is to think of impermanence. So every moment any sensation appears, we just need to mentally recite rising and passing. Okay, and if the joy of detachment start to disappear, instead of the strong neutral equanimity from previously, this time round one may feel a kind of blankness or spaciousness. So the combination of this compassion and insight may lead one to experience this perception of infinite space. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reciting, rising and passing. Okay, then we can switch to the third sublime state, which is appreciative joy. And we're going to rejoice in the accomplishments of all beings. So using the lowest common denominator, every moment, every second, all beings will actually gain something. They'll gain a new experience, so we can rejoice in their gain. So anytime new sensation appear, then we can rejoice with all beings. Okay, and if the conditions are right, this appreciative joy may lead one to the third level of concentration, indicated by the emotion of happiness, calm kind of happiness. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rejoicing with all beings. Okay, then we're going to switch to the insight portion. We're going to reflect that all beings will eventually be separated from what they have achieved. So similarly, all these sensations, they don't stay with us 24/7. They come and go every moment. So anytime sensation appears, we just need to mentally recite rising and passing. Okay, and if let's say the joy of detachment start to disappear, instead of the blank or spacious experience from previously, this time round it should feel like a sense of fullness, as though the sense of self has enlarged and fill up the entire surroundings. So we call that the perception of infinite consciousness. And then regardless of what you experience, keep on reciting, rising and passing. Okay, so before we conclude the session, due to time constraints, same gentle reminder: in all activities, whether you're standing, sitting, walking or lying down, you can be mindful of impermanence or mindful of the sublime states. And with that, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, and formally generate right thought. All right, any questions or problems from anyone? Okay, if there's no issues, then we move on to the chanting. Okay, dedicating merits. Akasata ca Bhumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Loka Sasanang Etavata ca Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Dedication of merits to the departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu. Yavani bana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we end off with bowing to the Buddha 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, so I think next week will be the first week of the month, so it's not a live stream version, it's just a Q&A.